Hello, guys, and welcome to day two of dealing with your anxieties and health anxieties and stress in the COVID-19 times. If you're on here and you can hear me, then do give me a shout out and a hi. So, today, what we're going to look at, I am going to be covering this evening basically dealing with your thoughts and emotions in COVID. Hello, Lizzie. Welcome aboard. COVID-19 times, we're going to be basically this evening addressing what thoughts and the feelings are. I'm going to go straight to the negative side because they're the things that we want to really harness and deal with. Hi, Stuart. Let's see, I've given you a hello tonight. There you go. We're then going to jump into what the mind does and how it deals with intense emotions and why the body, the mind, suppresses negative emotions and what impact that has on you. Then I'm going to jump into what specific types of negative emotions that are really common that you know, guilt, anger, things like that. And I'm going to give you a little bit of synopsis on that and what the driving forces of these negative emotions actually are. And then we're going to finally finish on the antidote. So the antidote this evening is addressing what you do with these emotions. What the heck we're meant to do with this intensity of fear, the intensity of anxiety, the intensity of guilt, things like that that start to arise. Hi, Laura. Oh, we've got Laura, Jessica, Lizzie saying hi. Hi, guys. Thank you for coming on board. Yeah, give me a thumbs up if you're here and excited for the next tune in. So before I jump into this evening, I want to do a little recap on yesterday because yesterday we addressed actually I set you a little task. And the task was, what one step could you take that's going to take you one step closer to becoming more optimistic? And I asked you to think about that in the last 24 hours. Give me a thumbs up or a like or a heart if you have done that in the last 24 hours. And of course, there should be an abundance of them now. If you've done your homework, then it should be littering my screen. Make it up if you haven't. No, I'm joking. All right. And then the other thing I was going to ask you to do was about becoming more aware of where your attention's going. So becoming more aware of that negativity, watching where your thoughts are going, and then becoming more aware of what you're obsessing about. And maybe it's not a negative thought, maybe it's a situation, perhaps it's the coronavirus, which would be quite obvious right now, but becoming more aware in the last 24 hours. So was that easy? Was it difficult? Did you become more aware or did you actually forget? All of the above would probably not be quite normal for an array of different people, but the whole thing is that you're starting to see that. And then the final thing was, I was asking you to stop. If you realised that your mind was going into something really negative and it was causing you friction, causing you anxiety, causing you to feel like on that downward spiral experience, I asked you to just stop right in that moment and redirect your attention into going to the feeling. So I hope you had a go at that, and I'd love to hear. You can either privately DM me or contact me any other way, but I'd love to hear how you got on with that and what sort of breakthroughs you had. But anyways, that was yesterday. We're going to jump swiftly into this evening's, which is looking at thoughts and emotions. So let's just start off with the basics. First of all, what is a thought and what is an emotion? Quite simple. So I always like to say as human beings, we're a little bit like transmitters. So it's a little bit like the phone masts. We know that like a phone mast directs us information to our phones because when we pick it up it works, or a little bit like a radio. We know when we turn on the radio that there's radio waves that have got to the radio in order for us to hear it. We can't see those radio waves, but we know that they're there because otherwise we won't be able to hear the music or the chatting. And I feel that human beings are a little bit like this. We conduct information all the time through us, but what happens is when we experience a thought, so a thought is like energy that's just passing through our experience. It's minding its own business, actually. It doesn't really care. It's got no kind of like good or badness to it. It is just energy. But what happens is it passes through our experience, and what we do is we grab it. We grab it because quite often, especially with negative thoughts, we grab it because it seems familiar. And it seems familiar because we've thought that thought before. So it might be like something like, I'm not good enough, I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling like overwhelmed, I can't deal with like all the media that's going on right now, I can't cope with like the idea of like potentially this virus having us in lockdown, taking over my life and me never being free again. Whatever the dialogue is, rah rah rah. There's a lot of collective thought around that topic happening right now because it is everywhere. Every device you put on, TV, mobile phone, whatever it might be, radio, it's just everywhere. It's really difficult actually to not have it permeate your experience. And one of the things that I would highly advise, especially if you're feeling really anxious right now, is of course you need to know information on a daily basis, but just limit yourself to social media and TV, because that in itself can be a bit of a trick, a bit of a it can suck you in, and what it does is when it sucks you in is you are actually putting your attention on something very low vibrational and very very negative and very intense, because again we don't know what the outcome is going to be, right? So I would highly suggest, so in our house we just put it on once a day on the TV to see what's going on, and then the rest of the time, other than accidentally come across it because I've put the radio on or I've gone onto Facebook, I try to limit myself to how much focus I'm putting on it, purely because what I said yesterday, where attention goes, energy flows, and so therefore it becomes more of our reality and our permanent experience, and that can feel overwhelming. So that's just a little side hot tip, but the thought is basically nothing more than a bit of energy that passes through our experience. Now there is a big difference between thoughts and thinking, and the difference is that thoughts go by and they are harmless. Thinking is when we grab them and we go off into a dialogue. And now we have got some connection to that particular thought, and it feels very, very real, and it can feel very, very overwhelming. And the truth of that is, like I suggested, is because it's attached to an emotion. So all thought has to come with emotion and vice versa. So what is negative thought? Well, it's basically an indicator that you have grabbed onto something that is now either causing you to feel like you've been threatened or you're under threat, or you've grabbed onto something that isn't actually real or true, but you've gone off into a dialogue into either a future or a past moment, and your mind is now taking you off into a negative fantasy, which is now causing you to create an emotion. And of course, the emotion that you're going to create to anything negative is always going to be something like cortisol or adrenaline, which are stress hormones. And what they do is they then flood your body and make you feel overwhelmed. And we kind of went more into detail about this yesterday. So if you want to know more and you haven't seen yesterday's video, then go back and watch that. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. So negative thoughts and emotions, are they bad for us? Right, okay. So when our bodies are creating cortisol, so a negative emotion, it is basically just a guide telling you that there's something that you need to do. So unfortunately, most of us have got a really bad relationship to negative emotions, and there's a reason for that. The first 7 years of our life, our brainwaves were what's called in a theta state. And when they were in a theta state, our brains were in like this hypnotic state. So what happened was we spent the first 7 years of our life, and if you've got a child under 7 or you know any child under 7, you'll notice that sometimes they'll just stop and they'll just watch and they'll just be observing. And what they're actually doing is they're downloading what's right or wrong. They're downloading programs, really. They're downloading how to interact with this world and how to deal with it. And so the first 7 years, when you're in this hypnotic state, basically that's what you're doing, is you are downloading things in your environment from your family, from your friends, from your teachers, from your siblings. You are downloading what you think is right or wrong. And we do this because we need to survive, right? We need to know how to get on this planet. So it's quite important. The only flaw to this is that while we're downloading what's right or wrong, is sometimes some of the things that we download can be very limiting. And what happens is, for example, this is a favourite of mine, like how many of us had a parent that when we were younger We had a parent that maybe said something like, money doesn't grow on trees, because we wanted something new. And we'd be told that there's a lack. You can't have it, you can't have it. Or perhaps you were told the belief that your family might have said, well, our family's just got big bones. That's why we can't lose weight. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. But, some people do buy into that belief because they've been told by their family that that's what happens in their family. Why would you question it? Because all you've got is the reference of under 7 is observing your family, friends, and your environment. And so what happens when you're in this hypnotic state is you download these programs, and then after the age of 7, what happens is your brainwaves turn into a theta state. And at this point, you then start to observe and interact and learn from the world in a completely different way. And how you learn and interact is through repetition, which is why it's so difficult to learn a foreign language after the age of 7 in comparison to some of these very small children that are 3 or 4 that may be able to speak 4, 5, 6 languages, and seemingly with no effort whatsoever, because they've just been in a state where they've observed it and it's just gone in. Whereas you get to like my age and you try and learn a foreign language and it feels like really difficult, and that's because the brainwaves have changed. So one of the things we do when we're little is that we naturally want to feel connected. Every human being, it's our human driving force, actually. One of our basic human needs is to feel connected. And if we don't feel connected, we don't feel alive. And even as an adult, that's very much the same thing. So we learn when we're younger to do things in certain ways, depending on the reactions we get from our parents or guardians or school teachers or whoever it may be that's seemingly very influential. Example of this be, learn when we're younger that actually we've maybe done something and we've felt really, really, really angry about something that's gone on. Perhaps someone's taken our toy and we felt really angry, or perhaps something's gone wrong at a school, we haven't been chosen for a team, or perhaps we've fallen out with someone. And so we start to express this anger and suddenly it's nipped in the bud. And what happens is someone might say, no, come on, little Johnny, stop be daft, just pull your socks up and make friends. Or you might be told that it's unacceptable to show those emotions. And so what we do as a small child as we go, we learn very quickly. And not because our parents or our guardians or our school teachers are bad people. This is not at all because of that. It's because it's all learned behaviour. But we learn very quickly to go, oh my goodness, if I do that, I'm not going to be accepted. And even though it's not consciously thought, even as a small child, we just want to be accepted. And you'll notice with your children or friends' children that they're constantly looking for praise. And actually, when we praise a child, they excel in whatever they're doing, because it aligns them with feeling really empowered and really upward spiraled. So we learn that if we show our emotions, if we show our anger, that potentially that's a wrong thing to do. So then we start to grow up, and suddenly we have lots of situations, let's face it, where we feel angry. But as soon as we do, we start to feel this anger, we remember that this is not right and people won't accept us. So what we do is we get that emotion and we suppress it into our subconscious. Now, I'm going to draw you a beautiful picture because it's the best way to describe this. Okay, so the analogy is, this is an iceberg, obviously. I don't know if that looks a bit phallic, but sorry if it does. Anyway, right, this is a really good analogy of your mind. So your mind consists of there's 2 parts to your mind. You've got your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. So this iceberg, you've got the tip of the iceberg and you've got the part of the iceberg that's under the water. So the tip of the iceberg basically makes up about 5% of an iceberg. The large part of an iceberg exists under the water. You can't see it, but it's there, and it actually makes up about 95% of the iceberg. And this is really similar to your mind. So your mind basically is split into 2 areas. You've got your conscious mind and you've got your subconscious mind. And the characteristics of these 2 areas is what's really important. The first part, your conscious mind, is your goal setting mind. It's the part of you that makes decisions. It's the part of you that is here, the reason why you're here tonight. It's because you consciously decided, well, there's something there that I might need to know, so I'm going to hop on. Either that or I bribed you. No, I'm only joking. Or did I? Anyway, so you consciously thought, I need to go and jump online and listen to this because there's some information I might know. But the large part that makes you up is the part that you don't see, and that is your subconscious mind. And the characteristics of this part of you are really, really important. So listen up. So the first thing about this part of what makes up your mind is it's like the largest tape recorder, and I apologise if I've got millennials on here because they probably don't know what a tape recorder is, but it's like the largest tape recorder that's recorded your whole entire life. So everything that you've ever done, felt, experienced, seen, exists in your subconscious mind and actually never switches off. So when you go to sleep, this does not go to sleep. It's the part of your mind that still operates your digestive system, and it helps you rejuvenate, and it helps your blood pump around your body and things like that while you're sleeping. So it never ever switches off. It's a really important piece of kit. But it's also a part of you that has no judgment whatsoever. So it doesn't know what's right and it doesn't know what's wrong. It doesn't know what's black or white. It just doesn't know anything. It's very neutral. And its job is to be a really obedient servant to your conscious mind, right? So it just does whatever your conscious mind tells it to do. But what lives in here, what it's made up of, is little compartments. I always say it's a little bit like a computer. So it's a really good analogy of computer because it's like it stores different things. So some of the things it might store for you is your personality, your values. So your values are how you perceive the world, your beliefs. So your beliefs again would be like how you perceive the world generally through how you've been brought up in the first 7 years of your life and continue to sort of interact with the world. So again, like knowing what's right or wrong, or what you like and what you don't like. Maybe your family have got like traditions or ways that they see the world. That's all exists in here. But it's also where you keep your suppressed emotions, which I'm going to put an S on, and I'm going to come back to that in a minute. So as you can imagine, this makes up a lot of who you are. Now, this is how it works. Your conscious mind tells it maybe that you want to do something. So maybe it might be like, oh, you know what? Right now, I am going to get myself into a really good place while I've got to be on lockdown, right? So brilliant. So the goal is I'm going to do something really positive to look after myself in this period of time. So it filters that information down into here. And what the subconscious mind then does is it then really quickly, like a computer system, as it goes through your whole entire subconscious and tries to find any information that's relevant to that goal, that intention that you have right now. So it filters through, and it finds some information here, right? It finds something that's not about COVID-19, but it's about maybe health, or it's about maybe your perception on being stuck in one house for a long period of time, or it finds some information about survival, or it finds some information about how do I deal with being at home working and having my kids homeschooled. Whatever it might be, it finds something. Now, this is the critical part. What most people don't realise is that this aspect of what makes you up, the subconscious mind, is 30,000, that's a zero by the way, 30,000 times more powerful than your conscious mind. So what does that mean? That means that if you send some information down here and there is something that is going to counteract that intention, that idea, that thing that you want to do, that is, doesn't matter what it might be something like, well, there's some information down here that says that you're probably going to die right now because there's some deadly illness going around the planet, and I found some facts here that said that potentially that's going to be my life, so rah, right? So some serious information that then comes back up and it sabotages the very thing that you're trying to do, which is implement something positive in this period of time, because it is more powerful. Now, the information that's in here simply might not be true. It could be out of date. But because the subconscious mind is more powerful, it will give you that impression that it is correct. And so what happens is, with that information, you then start to, from your subconscious mind, not only does the information come up, but it also gets connected to what's called a suppressed emotion. So I put an S down here. Why did I put an S down here for the emotions? Well, what is a suppressed emotion? Quite simply, a suppressed emotion is a negative emotion that you have unconsciously stuffed into your subconscious due to some experience in the past that has not gone right. So an example of that would be, I always say that it's like we're all born this blank canvas. God, I always get really red on my neck when I'm like talking. Apologies for that. I should have brought your attention to it, should I? You probably wouldn't have noticed. Anyway, rah. So we are all born at blank canvas, every single one of us. And what I mean by that is, when we land on this planet, we have no bad experience, we have no good experiences, we just are a blank canvas. And as we trundle through life, every single one of us experiences life. Some of us have some really amazing experiences, but all of us have a multiple of like, okay, good, and sometimes indifferent and potentially bad experiences. Now, this is how we have been programmed as a human being, and this is really interesting, is that every single one of us, every single one of you that's on here right now listening, have been programmed to stay alive at whatever cost. And you know that's true, right? Because if something happened right now and you had to get out of your building, out of your room, whatever it was, you wouldn't message me on here and say, is it all right if I leave this Facebook Live because I'm potentially under massive threat right now? You would just get out. You would just action it and do it, because the DNA of you is so programmed for survival. And so because of that, also what happens is, when we go through intense experiences, and let's face it, traumatic, stressful experiences have got a huge spectrum. It could be that, like, you were, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old and you lost your first pet. It might be a hamster, or it could be a dog or whatever, but you've had an experience of losing your first pet animal. And in that moment, you experience an emotion. An emotion rises from within that feels intense. It feels like loss. It feels like fear. It feels scary, whatever it might be. And maybe your parents have said, don't worry, we'll go and get you a new hamster, whatever it might be. And that's great, but you as a little child are still left with this emotion. Well, this is what happens. So your mind, your conscious, subconscious mind, basically makes a decision on your behalf. It would go something like this if it could talk. Can little Johnny deal with this stress right now? No, he can't. So it takes that emotion, and what it does unconsciously to you is it suppresses it, so it stuffs it into your subconscious, right? So there's a bit of loss from your hamster there. Then you have another experience. Maybe you have a breakup of a relationship. So there's fear, there's rejection, there's loneliness. Maybe you have maybe you have a fallout at work and you get ostracized. So there's a shame, there's a fear again. Perhaps you just feel you have perhaps you go through something like you lose a partner. Perhaps you experience a death, more loss. But when we have these intense experiences, every time that we do, if the brain thinks you can't deal with that emotion right in that moment, it stuffs it down. And it's doing this to every single one of us on this planet. There isn't a person that hasn't had this experience. We're constantly having this experience happening to us. Now, your subconscious mind is it's a very large space, I have to say, but it's not infinite. It's not infinite. And this is where the problem lies, because what happens is your mind and body are completely connected, and you know that's true. And so what happens is and you know that's true because if you're hungry, what will happen is your mouth will start salivating before the food's even got anywhere near your mouth. You must have all had that experience. It's not just me, I hope. But what happens, right, is that the subconscious mind gets so full, and so it starts to overflow. And because the mind and body are connected, it can only overflow into one place, and that is manifest in the body. And so it starts to manifest as things like anxiety. It starts to manifest as things like panic attacks, depression, low moods, or even more. It starts to manifest as chronic pain, back pain, neck pain, whatever it might be. But all these things are a symptom or a reflection that the subconscious is rammed full of this emotion, this negative emotion that we have unconsciously suppressed because of the beliefs that we've created from being a small child, that feeling our feelings is not a good thing, because if we express them, we might be ostracized. And so what happens is we become adults, and then suddenly something like COVID-19 happens, which is a really serious situation that is like permeating all our social media, all our phones, all our TVs, everywhere we go, it's there. And what it does is it triggers this emotion within us, which is actually what it's doing is it's surfacing by the triggers of us looking and watching all this information. And what happens is every time it surfaces, and you've probably experienced this maybe even the last few weeks or the last day or two, is that we naturally, as humans, we will move from pain to pleasure at whatever cost. And so what we do is we stuff it back down again. And how we do that is maybe by diverting our attention into getting more obsessed with what's going on TV, or perhaps we end up like maybe drinking a bit more alcohol, or taking drugs, or spending money online that we don't have, but we'll do whatever it takes to try and get away from this feeling. Because let's face it, anxiety and stress does not feel great. It feels horrendous, in fact. So if you are someone that has experienced some of these feelings in the last few days, then give me a thumbs up, because I'm going to give you a solution in a minute, I promise you. But before I do, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the most common suppressed emotions that we stuff into our subconscious, because you're gonna be able to relate to all of these, and I want to give you a little synopsis of what these emotions really do. So the first most common one is anger. We are so good at repressing anger, it's ridiculous. Suppressing anger. Most people suppress the majority of their anger. It's interesting when I get clients, so they might come to me with like severe anxiety, or VIP clients that might end up being on the program because like they just can't deal with like feeling like just constantly on edge, or feeling like there's a constant threat in their lives, and waking up every morning and just overwhelmed with this kind of intense feeling, or perhaps they've got backache, or perhaps like they just feel like they want to just feel like they used to. They just want to remember what it feels like to be who they used to, when they used to wake up and not have that awful, intense feeling that seems to consume them, so much so that they're not sleeping, or they're just feeling like on edge, or feeling like just not themselves. And I don't know if you can relate to any of that, but one of the things that always comes up straight away is that I might say to them, usually you'll have some sort of suppressed anger going on. And one of the first things that a lot of my clients say when I first meet them is, but I don't feel angry. I feel anxious, but I don't feel angry. And it's a really important thing that I want to share here is, just because you don't feel angry doesn't mean to say you haven't got a ton of it suppressed in there. In fact, if you're experiencing anxiety, if you're experiencing lots of stress, or health anxiety right now, or depression, or even chronic pain, then I can guarantee you've got suppressed anger in here. Guarantee it. Most people have got some, but if you're brimming with it, then that's going to be your experience. Right, the exciting news about anger, right, is this. She says exciting news. You're probably thinking I'm going to do lally, but I'm not. Right, emotions are not the problem. Negative emotions are not the enemy. The problem is how we react to them. That is the problem. And most people are trying to deal with fighting the emotion off rather than changing their relationship to the actual emotion. I'm going to say that again. Emotions are not the problem. Negative emotions are not the enemy. It may feel like they are because of the intensity, and who really wants to ever feel like that, but they're not. The problem is our relationship to the emotion, because we have for so long been living in a way where we've been trying to push these emotions away. We've been trying to stuff them back down. We've been trying to get away from them as fast as we possibly can. The major problem with that is it causes um, so there's so when we try and push something away, we're basically causing like a friction between you and the emotion, and what that does is it causes your attention to go more onto it, and where attention goes, energy flows, which means what you're doing is you're actually making it bigger, more intense, more alive. So the very thing you're trying to get away from, like anxiety, health anxiety, stress, is actually perpetuated because of our own selves. And we are our own worst enemies at the end of the day. And not because we're bad people, but because we've never been taught what to do with this stuff. And I really want to give you something this evening so you can take this away and start making a change to that tonight. Okay? So, but before I do, I want to finish off on these emotions. Anger, the exciting news about anger is that anger is the only emotion that makes people step up and make changes. And to be honest, the only reason we ever experience negative emotions is because there's something that we need to change in our lives. The first thing we have to change is changing our relationship to them. And then the second thing is changing whatever needs to be done in our objective world. Whether that is you getting really honest with where you're at. Perhaps you need to learn to say no more. I mean, most people are terrible at saying no. If you're a yes person or a people pleaser out there, then you'll know how exhausting that is and how debilitating it is. But there's always something to change or shift. So anger is actually, once we get to a state of anger, we're more likely to make that change. Guilt. Okay, guilt is, the positive about guilt is it's our inner compass that tells us whether we are off kilt, if you like, with who we really are. So usually if we feel guilty, it's because we've done something or we're behaving in a certain way that isn't really who we are, and actually we need to address that and make a shift and a change. But we don't need to beat ourselves up about this stuff. That's the problem, is we spend most of our time beating ourselves up and not making any changes. So then the beating up is the resistance that keeps the very experience of guilt alive. I hope this is making sense. If it is, please let me know. So guilt is our inner compass. It gives us the direction for us to be able to know whether we're in alignment with our truth or not. Anxiety. 100% of the time, anxiety is it is there. It's not a negative thing, anxiety. I know that you're probably going to scream at me down your phone or whatever you're watching me on right now, but anxiety is not the enemy. Anxiety is to show you, it's been created within the human to tell us that we're under threat, that there's a problem, that we need to like either run for our lives or there's something to sort out. The reason why anxiety has got out of control is because generally we're not under threat when we're experiencing anxiety, but our body thinks we are, because the subconscious mind does not know what's real and not real. It just listens to where you are putting your focus, hence why I said to you, reduce the amount of time that you are spending focusing on negative things like COVID-19. Of course, keep yourself up to date. Of course, keep yourself safe. But don't become obsessed with the news, because it's not going to serve you right now. Don't become obsessed with social media and all the posts that are going on, because there's a lot of good stuff, but there's a lot of rubbish as well going on out there that's very, very toxic and negative. Do not go there, because it's going to exasperate the way that you feel. And this is about you taking your power back so that you can harness yourself and feel flipping amazing. And I said yesterday, and I'm going to say again, this is not a time for feeling bad. This is a time to obviously implement what we've been told to do, but this is a time for you to go inwards and to actually grow and to expand and to like become a more empowered version of yourself. And that starts by going, I get to choose how much time and focus I put onto the things like COVID-19 right now. I need to know this information maybe once a day, but the rest of it I'm going to put down, because what's more important is about your health right now, and it's so important. And so to do that, you're going to have to start making decisions, conscious decisions that support you. So anxiety is not the enemy. It's there to show you that you're under threat. If you're not under threat and you're feeling anxious, it's because you have been putting your attention and focus on things that don't serve you. You've allowed yourself to put your mind, or let your mind take you into a future moment and use it in a negative way. And if you want more information on what I'm talking about here, go back to yesterday's, because I've spoke in great depths about what that all meant yesterday. And then the final one is fear. So fear is often cited as one of the core basic emotions that we experience as a human. And again, it has been heavily cemented in our DNA for self-preservation. It's to guide us. It's not to, like anxiety, is to help us know when we're under threat or not. However, if we allow our minds to go off into a future moment and start fantasizing about things in a negative way, even though they're not happening right now, then that is nothing more than false evidence appearing real. Fear. False evidence appearing real. It's not real. It's a future moment that's not now. The only moment that you've got is this moment now. Other than that, there's no point worrying or stressing about it, because if it's not here and it's not now, forget it. Forget it. Okay, so that's me rattling on enough. So let me give you an antidote. What are you going to do with these negative emotions if you recognise them in the next 24 hours? Simple. Get your pen and paper out. There is 3 steps to this. The first step is, as I said yesterday, and I'm going to repeat again today, awareness precedes all change. Awareness precedes all change. So you have to first of all become aware of what you're feeling. So maybe ask yourself, what is this feeling that I'm experiencing right now? So it might be anxiety, it might be fear, it might be guilt, it might be shame, it might be all of the above. It might be anger. There's been a lot of anger out there. So let's say it's anger that you're feeling, right? Step 2 is, what you're going to do is the opposite to what you've always done. Instead of stuffing that emotion back down into your subconscious mind, what you're going to do is you're going to take the label off it. So you're going to rip the label off anger. So you've got this emotion, you've identified it's anger, you're going to rip the emotion off, and now what you're going to do is this, is you are going to feel it. You are going to feel this feeling, right? Probably for the first time ever in your whole entire life. And what happens is, when you sit and you feel the feeling, and I'm just going to feel this feeling with every cell in my body, close my eyes for a minute, that's all it takes, is it starts to dissipate, it starts to decrease. And what's actually happening is the emotion that's rising up from your subconscious, ding, 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 instead of you stuffing it back down again, this time it rises up and you let it free. Simpler. You let it free. So all you've got to do is feel it. And as simple as this might sound, because of our programming and because of who we've kind of become through society and I guess learning to survive as a human being, we haven't ever really done this. And so as much as it's simple, it's going to be different. It's not difficult, but it is different. And so there may be a running dialogue in your head that goes, this is too simple to be true. Ignore it. It's just another running dialogue of rubbish. Ignore it. If you do this for the next 24 hours with any negative emotion that comes up, you're going to be in a completely different place in the next 24 hours. That I promise. I would absolutely love to hear how you get on. with all this in the net, and please DM me or whatever, just share with me where you're at. I'd love to hear where how you get on with this exercise. But it's simple, 3 steps. You're going to identify it, you're going to then take the label off it, and then you're going to sit and you're going to feel this. And the more that you feel it, the more it will dissipate. And there might be more to feel, and that's okay. You've got a lifetime's worth of whatever it is that you've suppressed. That's okay. You're on a journey with it. It's the journey, not the destination, I think they say. But every time it tries to rise up, instead of stuffing it away, just feel it and let me know how you got on. So, tomorrow at 6 o'clock, we are going to be looking at fear. It's spreading faster than COVID-19, how to deal with the fear. So, tomorrow evening is about fear. If you've got any specific topics, by the way, that you would like me to talk about, then absolutely share them on either my page or DM me or whatever. I know a couple of you have spoken about poor sleep and physical pain, and I think there was another one which I can't remember off the top of my head. But if you've got bits and pieces that you'd really like to know more information on, then completely reach out, because this is your program and you've got me for another 5 sessions. So scream out, shout out, let me know, and I'll try and meet what you've asked for. Other than that, guys, remember, right, this is an inside job, and there's only one person that can actually do this, and that's you. So in order to get the change, you have to implement these very simple tools that I'm sharing. And if you do, then we're going to be having a completely different conversation by the end of the week, I promise. So enjoy, have fun. Thanks for listening, and thanks for commenting, and thanks for sending me all the love. Have a great night, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Mwah.